Life Stories Live.
Hello everyone, welcome to another life story coming to you from Life Stories Worldwide. If you need any prayer and you need any help, then please contact us on our hotline, +44 794 355 0287. You can also go to our website, lifestoriesworldwide.com, and there you'll find lots of information to help you, to encourage you, be able to hear lots of other stories. But tonight we are going to Australia. We have a guest speaker from Melbourne, Charles Rockefeller. We also have Trevor Stiles joining us from Australia. He's been on with us before. And we welcome especially the guests who are listening in Ukraine and on Torch Trust, from Torch Trust. It's really good to have you with us. But tonight, Charles is going to share his story. Charles originally from Ohio in the USA, then moved to Melbourne when he was young. He had a wild time in university, looking for answers about life, about the existence of God and death. And something happened to him which gave him those answers. He had a dental practice, and tonight Charles is going to share his story. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Charles, to tell your story. Thank you, Charles.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. My name's Charles Rockefeller. I was born in 1959 in Akron, Ohio, in the United States of America. The 60s in America was a very turbulent decade, and I, as a youngster, felt very uncertain about life and my future. When I was 6 years old, I nearly lost my left hand when it got caught in the wrapping machine at the family bakery. My father was able to stop the machine just in time, and the doctors at the hospital were able to successfully operate on my hand. I see this incident and the outcome as God's protecting me in a very special way, as he knew that my hands would become a very important part of my future. In the 60s, I witnessed nightly television reports of the Vietnam War, and I had personal fear that one day I'd have to serve in Vietnam. One afternoon, my grandmother, who was shot in the hand during an armed robbery at the family bakery, I was so scared my grandmother that could have been killed. In May of 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. This sparked major racial riots across America, including in Akron, and one complete district of businesses were looted and then burned to the ground during the riot. One of those businesses lying in ruin was the family bakery of 50 years. In August of 1968, Senator Robert Kennedy, the man who gave the eulogy at Martin Luther King's funeral, had just won the Californian primary, and he was shot before my eyes on television. A fear just gripped my life. Who would die next? What would be the next traumatic event in my life? I just felt such an uncertainty about the future and about dying. I watched a young boy in my street, younger than me, die of cancer. He had this bald head. And I just cried out to God and I said, please, God, do not let me get cancer. Please do not let me die. And as a 7-year-old, I felt a peace at the end of that simple prayer. My father no longer had a bakery business, and he believed there must be a better environment to raise a young family than Akron. To my great surprise, my parents decided to move to Australia, leaving behind all our relatives in America. It was extremely difficult as a 9-year-old saying goodbye to your grandparents and relatives, but in hindsight, I can see that God led us to Australia, and we have experienced God's blessing in this wonderful country. I attended high school at Geelong College and loved participating in sports like running, table tennis, and Australian football. I enjoyed the feeling of winning and the acclaim which success in sport brought. But I found the feeling lasted only for a short time before you had to achieve again. I had a deep desire as a teenager to fit in and to be accepted by others. especially my peers, and sport helped me fit in. I was a good student and was fortunate enough to get into the dental course at Melbourne University. I enjoyed the freedom of university life. There was plenty of parties, drunken pranks, drinking heavily on weekends in order to relax and feel socially comfortable became routine for me. In my drunken state, I would wander back to my university room all alone and then have this empty, unsatisfied, and uncertain feeling in my heart. I thought to myself, surely there's more to life than drinking, girls, and parties. The effects of drinking often prevented me from getting to sleep at night, and I would often read a Voice magazine, which was a publication of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. And I'd read stories about men in hopeless situations whose lives were transformed by Jesus Christ. One night, as I was reading through the Voice magazine, a thought went through my mind: Charles, you should follow Jesus Christ and become like these men who have true peace and a purpose in life and have a relationship with God. And it's interesting to note that 30 years later, I made my own testimony tract about my life, and I've been able to share my testimony with others through that tract. After hearing an announcement on the radio inviting listeners to an evening service at the Collins Street Baptist Church, I had a desire to attend church again. I traveled to the city by tram that night, and at the Royal Melbourne Hospital stop, 3 young ladies about my age got onto the tram. They were all together, and I thought one of those ladies in particular
LifeStories
was absolutely beautiful. And I had this unusual thought go through my mind. One day you're going to marry that beautiful lady. When the tram stopped at Collins Street, these 3 ladies got off and, to my great surprise, walked into the church. I started to attend the young adults Bible study group at the church. During a time of singing, I became extremely emotional and started to cry as I realized how much God loved me and was willing to send his only son, Jesus Christ, to die for my sins and wrongdoings so that I might have eternal life. The words from the Bible in John 3:16 came alive for me. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. It became so real to me. One night in my university dorm room, I got onto my knees and confessed that Jesus Christ was the only Son of God, and that he died and shed his precious blood on that cross at Calvary in my place for my sins. He was my sacrifice. And then he rose from the dead. The tomb is empty. Jesus Christ is alive. I asked Jesus into my life. I no longer had to fear death. I had the assurance of eternal life. I also felt clean, freed from the burden of wrongdoings and selfishness, which were over my life. My life was all about I, myself, and me. And this had changed, and I'd been transformed. And I now had the confidence to face the future with Jesus Christ by my side, guiding me, giving me strength and courage to face an uncertain future with crises and traumas with a certain God. How good is that? How good is that? And I began to realize that God knew me intimately, and he cared about me in an intimate way. And he had a good plan and purpose for my life. I truly believe that everyone is specially created by God for a unique purpose and plan here on earth. And one of my favorite passages in the Bible is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." He has good plans and a good purpose for all of us. After becoming a Christian for my own good, God wanted me to make some changes in my life. I had a selfish relationship with a girlfriend who I was never fully honest with. It was all about taking. I felt God wanted me to be honest with her, and we broke up. The next person I went out with was that beautiful lady who I saw in the tram that first night I went to church in 1980. Her name was Leanne, and she also happened to go to the young adults Bible study. In 1983, we were married, and that thought I had on the tram, one day you are going to marry that beautiful lady, came to fruition. I now know that thought was from God. Leanne is a beautiful medical nurse. She is the most wonderful gift from God as a wife, such an angel, so caring, so loving, a great mother, very insightful medically. And Leanne, on numerous occasions over the past 25 years, has used her medical skills and also her organizational expertise to get me into hospital with the correct specialist quickly, and has saved my life medically, physically on numerous occasions, a gift from God. I had a serious problem with heavy drinking, sometimes to the point that I needed to be drunk to have confidence to socialize and have a good time in a social gathering. God impressed on me to stop drinking alcohol. At that time, I really did not fully understand why God wanted me to stop drinking, but I stopped drinking to the dismay of my drinking buddies. I'll tell you what, in life, it's important to listen to God and to act on his desires for your life, for he knows our future, and he wants the very best for us, his children. In 2000, so that's 20 years later, during a medical condition called graft-versus-host disease, my skin color turned yellow as I suffered a bout of severe liver inflammation. My liver enzymes were more than 50 times what they should be, more than 50 times normal. My liver was only in good condition because I had not consumed alcohol for 20 years. God knew my future, and I was just able to avoid the more serious condition of acute liver failure, which would have led to death. So again, I was glad I listened to God and stopped the drinking. I always wanted to play Australian rules football at the highest level. Before matches, I can remember looking at my small pair of hands and getting upset with God and saying, why have you made my hands so small? If only my hands were bigger, I would be a much better footballer. In my final year of dentistry, I realized that I had the smallest pair of hands out of 50 undergraduate students. And of course, small hands are such a huge advantage when performing dentistry. I had experienced firsthand how God knew my future intimately, how he cared for my past, my present, and my future, and how he had it all planned out, a good plan and a good purpose for my life. And I only had to follow his guidance and his direction. In 1987, Leanne's mother, Joan, who was 50 at the time, died in a car accident, and her dad, Bernie, suffered a serious long-term injuries from the car accident. About 3 months later, our first child, Stephanie, who was 9 months at the time,
Life Stories.
We were at a church progressive denter, and Stephanie was in Leanne's arms. It was an incredibly dark night, and Leanne tripped on the street curb. Stephanie flew up out of her grasp and hit her little head directly on the hard bitumen of the road. There was this horrific crack and then this horribly loud crying. And it was like crying that I'd never heard before. We raced to the Geelong Hospital, which was 20 minutes away. Someone rang ahead for us. And there I was driving like a madman, just praying for Stephanie. She was in the back seat of the car in my wife's arms and just crying and screaming in this unrelenting fashion. At the hospital, tests were performed, and we were told that Stephanie had a skull fracture and there was ongoing bleeding into the brain, which could cause long-term damage. Stephanie's eyes then rolled back, and she was in my arms, and she lost consciousness. And I knew at that point that I was losing her, but I had this peace that I would see her again in heaven one day, and she would be with my Jesus, and I'd see her again. I'd lost her. Within a minute, she awoke from that unconscious state, was no longer crying, and no longer displayed any sort of symptoms from that accident. And she's had no long-term effects. And to me, it was a miracle of God. My little daughter was given back to me. And now today is a beautiful 36-year-old mother and wife with two beautiful children. And what a wonderful gift that is. I own my own dental practice in the city of Geelong. And early on, I dedicated the business to God. I knew it was God's business. And in a sense, I was just the caretaker, the janitor of the business. I would ask God daily for guidance and wisdom when operating and making decisions. I commenced from scratch in 1985 as a sole operator with 2 surgeries. And by 1995, the practice had grown to 6 surgeries and 10 employees. I saw firsthand how to, if you want to have a successful business, to run it on godly principles found in the Bible with traits of honesty, integrity, hard work, and a fair price. I always tried to give more than what I charged for. Promise little, deliver more. And I experienced God's great blessing and provision. The Bible is the Creator's manual for life and success. So full of wisdom, direction, and insight into the past, present, and future. We should use it when we run our business. For 20 years, I had a weekly men's prayer meeting at the dental surgery on a Monday night. They were wonderful times. And we saw many, many people come to know the Lord at the dental surgery. It was just amazing. In 1998, I thought I had the perfect life. I was happily married to Leanne and had 2 healthy children, and Stephanie, 11, and Michael, 10, who were both doing well in school. The dental practice was prosperous. I always looked forward to work. We were living in this lovely home in Newtown. I was a cross-country runner, and my health was so good that I never had a sick day off from work in 15 years. And I thought to myself, life could not be better. I thought I knew my future. I planned to practice dentistry in good health for another 27 years till my retirement at 65 years of age in 2025. So that's 1998, at the start of 1998. That all changed one Friday night in March 1998, when the doctor said over the phone, "Charles, that lump in your neck is cancer. You have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You have to stop working and have treatment straight away." I started to cry. I went into shock. I told my family the terrible news. And my 11-year-old daughter, Stephanie, said, "We must pray." So as a family, Leanne, Stephanie, and Michael, 10, and myself went into my living room, and Stephanie made this simple prayer: "Daddy, please God, do not allow Daddy to die of the cancer." Exactly 1 week later, on a Friday night, so this is exactly 1 week later, on the Friday night, I was lying in bed by myself, feeling pretty apprehensive and sure about my future. The bottom line was that people with, and I found out what I had, stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, have a life expectancy of only 3 years. So there I was at 38 years of age, given 3 years to live till I was 41. I was lying in bed and I just asked God for help and a miracle. I asked God for something big, not 3 years, but for 10 more years. I wanted to see the children grow up. I wanted to be at Michael and Stephanie's 21st birthday. While I was in that bed alone on that Friday night, a week after I was told that I had this cancer, I turned on the Christian radio station, which I helped start 4 years earlier in 1994. The experienced announcer was Mark Evans, and he said, "I've never done this before."